The storm was cold, biting, and angry. Snow fell like knives from the sky, and wind howled through the dead trees of the ruined village. Cole, a human supply scout, moved carefully through the wreckage, his boots crunching over frozen bones and broken glass. He had been sent here to check for survivors, though everyone believed there would be none. It had been weeks since the bombing, and nothing should have been left alive. But then he heard it. A sound so soft, so small it almost got lost in the wind, a child's cry. Cole stopped. His heart thudded once, heavy in his chest. He turned his flashlight and aimed it toward the rubble. The cry came again. He moved faster, stepping over metal beams and broken furniture. Then he saw them, two small alien children shivering behind a fallen wall. They were thin, covered in dirt and ash, their skin pale blue and full of bruises. One child hugged the other tightly, whispering in a language Cole barely understood. The older one looked up at him, eyes full of fear, but also hope. Cole dropped to one knee, keeping his hands low. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. The younger child whimpered, pressing into the older one's arms. Then, a sudden movement behind him, fast and sharp, made him spin around. A figure crawled out from behind a broken structure. An adult? No, a woman, an alien woman. She dragged herself forward through the snow on her knees, arms wrapped tightly around something. Cole raised his weapon out of instinct, but lowered it quickly. She was no threat. She was barely even standing. The woman reached him and collapsed at his feet. The wind whipped her long silver hair across her face as she looked up, her eyes shining with tears. In her arms was a third child, small, too still. "Too quiet, please," she gasped, her voice weak and cracking. Take them." Cole couldn't speak. He just stared at the lifeless child in her arms, and the two others trembling nearby. She held the body tighter, her shoulders shaking. "This one didn't make it," she whispered. "But the others, they still can." "Who are you?" Cole asked, barely able to speak through the lump in his throat. "I am no one," she said. "Not anymore." She looked up at him, her face full of sadness. "I've asked everyone. Begged soldiers, traitors, even enemies. No one would take them." She coughed hard, and blood touched her lips. "But humans save people, don't they?" Cole looked at the children again, then back to her. She wasn't asking for her own safety. She wasn't asking for food or shelter for herself. She was only begging for her children. He nodded slowly. "Come on," he said, taking off his heavy coat and wrapping it around the younger child. "You're all coming with me." The woman's head dropped in relief. Oh, she didn't move to stand. She just pressed her forehead into the snow, whispering words he couldn't understand. Cole carried the youngest child first, letting the older one hold his arm as they walked toward the small transport truck he had parked nearby. He returned for the woman, who was still kneeling in the snow, arms now empty, her face pale and distant. "Get in the truck," he said gently, reaching for her arm, but she pulled away. "No," she said firmly, "just them. You'll freeze out here," he argued. "You need help too." She looked at him with tired eyes. "I've already died, human," she said. "Let the living survive." Cole didn't listen. He picked her up anyway, even as she tried to push him back. She was lighter than he expected, bones and sorrow wrapped in skin. Inside the truck, he gave the children warm blankets and water. The woman sat quietly in the corner, eyes shut, not sleeping, just gone inside. Later, as the engine hummed and the truck rolled toward his outpost, the older child leaned forward and whispered something. "She used to smile," the little one said, "before father died." Cole glanced in the mirror at the woman. She didn't move. He had only come to deliver supplies. But now he carried 3 lives in his truck, and maybe a 4th. If he could bring her back from the edge, the snow outside was endless, but inside the truck, something warm had begun. a promise, a beginning, a family. Asterisk, the storm grew worse that night. Snow slammed against the shelter's metal walls. The heating core buzzed softly, filling the small space with warmth. Cole sat near the makeshift heater, watching the children sleep, but one thing was wrong. One person was missing. Ryella, the alien woman. The mother was gone. Cole stood up, quickly scanned the small shelter again. Only 3 sleeping forms, 2 children, and the lifeless third. Wrapped in cloth, Ryella had vanished. He opened the door, and a wave of cold air punched him in the chest. The wind screamed, blinding snow stung his face. Then he saw her. She was curled up outside, knees to chest, no blanket, no coat. Her silver hair was stiff with frost. She didn't move, didn't even look up when he called her name, Ryella. Cole shouted, running through the snow. "What the hell are you doing?" She didn't answer, didn't fight back when he grabbed her frozen arms and pulled her to her feet. Her lips were blue, her eyes distant. "Still," she whispered. "I'm not allowed." "Allowed? What?" he demanded, lifting her in his arms. "To live in warmth," she said, eyes closing. "That's not for me anymore." Inside the shelter, he laid her down beside the heater. She shivered violently as the heat touched her skin. He rubbed her hands, her arms, tried to get the blood flowing again. "You could have died," he said, through clenched teeth. "You would have left your kids alone." She opened her eyes slowly. "I already have," she whispered. "They don't need me. They need someone stronger." "Someone like you." Cole didn't know what to say, so he stayed quiet and kept her warm. Eventually, she slept, her breathing soft and slow. By morning, the storm passed. Sunlight broke through the clouds in pale gold beams. The snow sparkled. Like crushed stars, the children awoke first, blinking at the light. They looked around and gasped when they saw their mother inside. Finally, beside the fire, the older girl ran to her and hugged her tightly. "You didn't leave us," she cried. Ryella smiled weakly, brushing the child's cheek. "I tried to," she said quietly, "but a human wouldn't let me." Cole was outside, checking his comlink still jammed. No signal to headquarters. No backup, no one to help. When he returned, he found the children eating slowly. Sharing a protein bar he'd left for them, Ryella sat quietly, legs folded, hands in her lap. She didn't eat, didn't speak, but when Cole handed her water, she took it with both hands and bowed her head. "Thank you," she whispered, not meeting his eyes. "You're part of this group now," Cole said, his voice firm. "You sleep inside, you eat, and you help care for them because they need you." "Not just me," she flinched, like his words. Hit deeper than a weapon. Later, as the kids played with a broken flashlight, Ryella spoke without looking at him. "In my world, a widow is like an empty house," she said, "once the husband is gone. No one knocks at the door anymore." Cole watched her. "You're not a house," he said. "You're a damn fortress for those kids." She looked up just for a second, and in that second, she almost smiled. That night, the children fell asleep beside each other, warm and safe for the first time in many nights. Cole sat across the fire from Ryella, sipping warm water. She watched the flames, her eyes full of memories, she said suddenly, "before the war. I had a garden." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Really?" She nodded. "Flowers that glowed at night, trees that sang in the wind. My husband planted the first seed." "What happened to it?" Cole asked. "The firebombs came," she said. "And then?" "I stopped planting." Silence fell between them again. But it wasn't cold this time. It was gentle. Ryella reached into her small pouch and pulled out a tiny silver seed. "I kept one," she said. Then she handed it to Cole. "I don't know why, but I want you to plant it when we find a place safe enough." He took the seed and looked at her. Her eyes were no longer empty. They were waiting for hope, for a future, for a reason to live, and maybe, just maybe, he'd help her find it again. The morning was quiet. Too quiet. Cole stepped outside the shelter with his rifle slung over his back, scanning the snow-covered horizon. No drones, no scouts, no tracks, just wind, frost, and silence. Inside, the children were still asleep. Arela, however, was not. He returned to find her scrubbing the shelter floor with a wet cloth. Her hands were raw, her knees pressed hard into the cold metal ground. She worked like a servant, fast and silent, never looking up. "You don't have to do that, Cole," said, setting his rifle aside. But she didn't stop. "I should be useful." She replied softly, "My hands must give something back. Or I am only a burden." Cole frowned. He sat beside her, watching as she cleaned a spot that wasn't even dirty. "You've already given me something," he said. "You gave me purpose again." That made her freeze. She looked up at him slowly, and for the first time, she truly met his eyes. Later that day, Cole was organizing supplies when the older child Leary approached him. She held something wrapped in cloth and placed it gently in his hands. "What's this?" he asked, unwrapping it. Inside was a small badge made of alien metal, shaped like a flame with 3 stars. "She used to wear this," Leary said, "when she was Commander Riella." Cole stared at the badge in disbelief. "Commander?" Leary nodded. "She fought in the War of the Ashen Line," the child said. "She led over 5,000 warriors." Cole looked over at Riella, who now sat quietly with her younger child, feeding her with care. There was no pride in her posture, no power in her voice, just silence and duty. "You're telling me your mother was a warrior queen?" Cole whispered. Leary smiled faintly. "She still is. She just forgot." That night, by the fire, Cole held up the badge. He gently tossed it into Riella's lap. "What is this?" she asked, almost afraid to touch it. "Something you dropped," he said. "Figured you might want to remember who you are." Riella stared at the symbol in her hands. Her fingers trembled, her face twisted with pain. "I don't deserve this," she said. "Not after I failed them." Cole leaned forward. "You didn't fail," he said. "You survived and you protected your children when no one else did." "I ran," she whispered. "I ran from the battlefield, from my people." "From honor?" Cole shook his head. "No," he said. "You carried your family through war and death. That badge doesn't belong to a commander anymore. It belongs to a mother who chose life." She looked at him, then really looked, and a tear fell from her silver eye. Over the next few days, something changed in Riella. She stopped scrubbing floors. She stood straighter, spoke clearer. She still helped around the shelter, but not as a servant. Now she moved like a leader. With purpose, she began teaching the children to sharpen sticks, how to track prints in the snow. And one night, she even showed Cole how to set an alien snare trap using vines and frozen bone. "You've trained before," she said, watching him work. A little Cole replied, "Special Forces, before. They shut my unit down." She smiled. "Your form is good. But your grip is lazy," she said, taking his wrist and adjusting it. "Here like this." Their hands touched just for a moment. The contact was small, but it sent something strange through both of them. Something warm, something dangerous. Later that night, Riella sat outside the shelter, staring up at the stars. Cole joined her. With 2 cups of warm liquid ration, he handed her one, and she took it without speaking. "Do you miss your world?" he asked. "I miss what it was," she replied. "But that world is gone. Now I just wish to keep this small world alive." She glanced back at the shelter where her children slept, and maybe not be so alone anymore. Cole sipped quietly, then said, "You're not alone, Riella." She looked at him, eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "I know," she whispered, "and that scares me more than the war ever did." Inside the shelter, Leary watched from a crack in the door. She smiled, then curled up beside her sister. For the first time since they lost their father, her mother was coming back not as a warrior, but as something stronger, a woman who could love again, and maybe be loved in return. The shelter was dark. The wind outside had softened, but inside there was another kind of storm brewing. A soft whimper, then a louder cry. The baby, the youngest of Ryella's children, was awake again, shaking, sobbing, clutching her tiny hands to her chest. Cole sat up from his bedroll, rubbing his eyes. Ryella didn't move. She was curled in the far corner, finally asleep after days of pushing her body too far. The baby cried louder now. Her tiny voice filled the room with fear and need. Leary, the older sister, tried to soothe her, but she was too tired, too young. Cole looked at Ryella again. She was still asleep, her chest rising and falling slowly. She needed this rest. She deserved this rest. Cole got up quietly, walked over to the baby, and bent down. Her alien eyes blinked up at him, watery and confused. Her skin was cold to the touch, her limbs trembling. He hesitated only a second, then gently scooped her up. She fit awkwardly in his arms, so small, so fragile. But when he pressed her against his chest and began rocking slowly, something strange happened. She stopped crying completely. Cole froze. The baby's breathing slowed. Her tiny body pressed close to his warmth. Her fingers curled around the fabric of his jacket. From the corner of the shelter, Ryella's eyes opened. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just watched her heart caught in her throat. The human, holding her child, not with fear, not with hesitation, but with tenderness. She'd never seen anything like it. When morning came, Cole was still holding the baby. He hadn't gone back to sleep. He just sat there, rocking slowly, watching her. Rest in his arms, Ryella walked over without a word. She knelt beside him, her hand brushing the baby's hair. She usually cries all night, she whispered. Cole smiled softly. Not tonight. Ryella looked at him, not at his face, but at how he held the child. Her expression changed. You held her, she said, like a father. Her voice trembled. Cole looked at her. And if I did? He asked, quietly. She didn't reply, but her eyes filled with tears. Later that day, Ryella took him outside, just the two of them. She said she wanted to show him something. They walked a short distance into the snow until they reached a strange stone marker. It was rough, but carved by hand, alien symbols etched into its face. This is where I buried my husband, she said, voice flat. He died trying to steal medicine for the baby. She paused, kneeling in the snow, her fingers touching the cold stone. I tried to hate him for leaving us, she whispered, but I couldn't. He was brave and stupid. He died because he thought the galaxy had one more good person in it. She looked up at Cole. Maybe he was right. Back at the shelter, Leary sat by the heater with the baby in her lap. She watched her mother and the human return, walking side by side. They weren't touching, but something between them had changed. Ryella no longer walked behind him. She walked beside him. That evening, Ryella sat down beside Cole near the fire. The baby lay sleeping again, this time with a small alien doll in her hands. One of the few toys that survived the war. Ryella held a piece of broken bread, but didn't eat it. She was staring at Cole, carefully. Where did you learn to hold a child like that? She asked. Cole gave a small laugh. I never did, he said. No family, no kids, but I figured. Warmth and kindness don't need training. She nodded slowly, then said something he didn't expect. Would you hold me? Like that? Fire crackled. The shelter fell silent. Cole looked at her, eyes full of questions. I don't mean now, she said, her voice shaking. But one day, if I let my guard down, if I'm not a warrior anymore, would you treat me the same way you treated her? Cole's reply was soft. You're already more than a warrior, Ryella. You're a mother, a protector. a survivor. And if you ever want to rest, just... For a moment, I'll be there. Her eyes shone in the firelight. Not just with tears, but with something she hadn't felt in years. Trust. In a war-torn world where nothing felt safe, an alien woman had finally seen a human not as a weapon, but as a hand reaching through the dark, and for the first time, she didn't flinch from it. Riella didn't know when it started. The way her eyes searched for him whenever he left the shelter. The way her chest tightened when he was gone too long. The way her hands slowed when preparing food just to listen for his voice. She wasn't supposed to feel this way. Not about a human. Not after everything she had lost. But Cole was different. Dangerous. Not because he carried a weapon, but because he carried warmth. And warmth could melt even the thickest armor. Cole had just returned from scouting the hills. Snow dusted his shoulders, and his breath steamed in the cold air. Riella was waiting, arms crossed, pretending to be annoyed. "You said you'd be gone an hour," she muttered. "It's been 3. Missed me already." He teased, tossing her a ration pack. She caught it but didn't smile, not on the outside. Anyway, inside. Yes, she did miss him, more than she was ready to admit. That night, as the children slept, Cole adjusted the heater and Riella poured water into 2 metal cups. They sat close, shoulders almost touching, silence stretching between them. "You always come back," she said suddenly. Cole looked at her. "Should I not?" "No," she replied, looking into her cup. "It's just... people in my life usually leave. Some walk into battle and never return. Others stop looking at me after I'm no longer useful." Cole leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "I'm not them," he said. "I come back because I want to." Riella swallowed hard. Her fingers curled tighter around the cup. "Even if I push you away, I'll still return," he said, "because I see something in you. Something strong. Something worth protecting." She turned her face away, but he saw the edge of her lips, twitched almost a smile. Almost. The next morning, Riella did something unexpected. She wore her old command badge. It was cracked, faded, but she pinned it over her shoulder. Leary noticed first. The little girl gasped. "Mom? You're wearing it?" Riella gave her daughter a small nod. "I'm not hiding who I was anymore," she said, "and maybe I don't need to hide who I'm becoming." Cole raised an eyebrow. "And who's that?" Riella looked at him. "A woman who is afraid again," she whispered, but in a different way. Cole stepped closer. "Afraid of what?" Riella didn't answer right away. She walked to the doorway of the shelter, looked out at the snowy mountains, then she said, "Afraid of wanting something that might be taken from me." Later that day, a sharp beep came from Cole's wrist. "Come." He tapped it, tanned, froze. It was a message from Bass, short, direct. Cold, unregistered alien family located, if harboring. Surrender immediately or face legal action. Cole stood still, his heart pounding. The children were laughing behind him. Riella was folding blankets, humming a tune he didn't recognize. He looked at the message again. Then he deleted it. He walked outside into the snow, his mind racing. They'd found him. They knew he was hiding them. They'd come soon, and when they did, they'd take Riella and the kids. That evening, Riella noticed something in his eyes. Something darker, heavier. "You're quiet," she said, sitting beside him. "What is it?" He stared at the fire, then finally spoke. "I got a message today." Her breath caught. "From who?" "Headquarters," he said. "They want me to turn you in. All of you." Riella stood up slowly. She didn't cry, didn't shout. She simply nodded. "I understand." Cole stood too, grabbing her arm gently. "I'm not turning you in," he said. "I destroyed the message. I made my choice." Riella blinked. "You'd give up your place, your safety, for us." "For you," he said, his voice low and steady. "You're not just refugees to me anymore. You're my family now, whether the galaxy accepts that or not." She looked at him like she'd never seen him before, as if the human she once feared had become the most dangerous thing of all, someone she could lose, someone she could love. The fire flickered between them. Snow tapped gently on the roof, and in that silence, two broken hearts leaned closer, not yet touching, not yet speaking what they truly felt. But the distance between them was smaller than ever, and Raella finally whispered, "I'm not afraid of the storm outside anymore." She looked at him, just the one inside. Me. The sky was no longer quiet. Cole heard it first to low humming sound, almost like thunder, but colder, mechanical, deadly. He grabbed his rifle and ran outside. A black dot moved across the sky. Low and slow, a military drone unmanned. But armed Raella appeared behind him. "What is it?" she asked, already sensing the fear in his body. "They found us," he said. "They're scouting, tracking heat signatures, preparing for a drop team." Riella's breath caught. She turned toward the shelter. Her children still inside. "We have to leave," she said. "Now?" Cole nodded. They had maybe 2 hours, 3 if they were lucky. Not enough to plan, but enough to run. Inside the shelter, Leary looked up with wide eyes as Cole packed gear. "Why are we leaving?" she asked. Cole crouched down to her level. "Because bad people are coming," he said simply. "But I promised your mother I'd protect you." Raella pulled together clothes, water packs, small food rations. Her fingers worked fast-trained. Practiced, but trembling slightly. Cole looked at her. "You've done this before." She nodded. "Too many times, but not like this," he said. "Not with someone covering your back?" She paused, her eyes meeting his, and for a moment, the fear in her heart didn't feel so heavy. They moved through the frozen forest in silence. Snow crunched under their boots. Raella carried the baby. In a sling across her chest, Cole had his rifle slung and Leary strapped to his back when her legs grew tired. No one complained, no one cried. They were no longer just fleeing, they were surviving together. Hours later, they reached a narrow canyon. Half buried in ice, Raella pointed toward a small crack in the rock. "There," she said, "a cave. It was used by rebels once. They won't track us in that deep." They squeezed through the opening, and inside, it was dark, but dry, safe, for now. Cole lit a small emergency lamp. The soft glow bounced off the walls. He looked around, then finally sat down. His body ached, but his mind raced. "I could have turned you in," he said softly. Raella didn't respond. "I had the chance," he continued, "and I didn't." Now she looked at him, not with confusion or fear, but with something deeper, something close to awe. "Why?" she whispered. "You had no reason, no reward." He leaned his head back against the wall. "I didn't need one," he said. "You gave me a reason to fight again, Raella. I wasn't living before, just following orders, delivering fuel, watching the stars die one by one. But when you looked at me and said, 'Please take my children,' something inside me woke up." Raella stared at him. Her hands tightened around the baby, who now slept peacefully in her arms. She moved closer just a few inches, but enough. "Do you know what I thought the first time I saw you?" she asked. "That I was dangerous." He guessed. "No," she said. "I thought you'd walk away. Everyone else did." Cole turned to her. "I couldn't," he said, "because when I saw you in that snow, I didn't see an alien. I saw a mother who had nothing left but love. And I knew I couldn't let that love die." The cave was silent again, except for the soft breathing of children and the growing heartbeat between two broken people. Raella reached out slowly, touching his hand. Her fingers were cold, but he didn't pull away. "I want to believe you," she whispered, "but I've been hurt too many times." "Then don't." "Believe my words," Cole said. "Believe what I've done." The next morning, distant sounds echoed through the canyon. Metal footsteps, quiet mechanical clicks. Cole peeked out from the rocks and saw them 3 human soldiers in white armor. Scanning the area, weapons drawn, he turned back inside. "They're here," he whispered. Raella nodded. Her voice didn't shake. "Then we move again." "No," Cole said. "You take the kids deeper into the tunnels." "I'll lead them away. You'll die," she snapped. "I might," he said, "but you won't." He grabbed his rifle and moved toward the cave. Before he left, Raella stepped forward and kissed his forehead. A soft touch, barely there, but it burned like fire through his chest. "Come back," she said, "if you don't. This time, I'll be the one waiting." Cole smiled. "Then I better come back," and with that, he vanished into the snow. One man against a military unit, for a woman who made him believe in family. Snow drifted softly over the trail, boot prints vanished under the wind. The human soldiers searched the canyon for hours, but they never found what they were looking for, because Cole had led them the wrong way. On purpose, buying time, risking everything. Now, 3 days later. He was bleeding, limping, and barely standing, but alive. He found his way back to the hidden cave, deep inside the mountain pass. His vision blurred, body cold. But his heart burned with one thing. He had to see them again. Raella heard the weak shuffle of footsteps before anyone else. She froze. Her heart stopped. Then she ran to the cave entrance. The moment she saw his silhouette in the snow, she fell to her knees. "Cole," she whispered. He dropped to the ground, too tired to stand any longer. But when she caught him, held his head in her hands, he smiled. "You waited," he whispered. "You really waited." Raella's tears hid his face before her lips did. She kissed his forehead, his cheek, his cold fingers. "I told you I would," she said. "And this time, I keep you, Cole." Woke hours later, warm and safe. The baby lay beside him. Curled against his chest, Leary leaned against his shoulder, fast asleep, and Raella sat nearby, watching him with eyes full of peace. He looked around the cavelet with soft crystal light, walls painted with glowing moss. It almost felt like a home. A strange feeling filled him, quiet, deep, powerful, like something he thought he'd lost long ago. He wasn't just a soldier anymore, not just a man with a rifle. He was something more, something needed, something trusted. Raella came to him later as the children played quietly. She didn't say anything right away. Just sat beside him and took his hand. He turned toward her, her fingers squeezed his, and then she asked it the question she'd never asked anyone before. "Will you be their father?" She wasn't begging, she wasn't desperate. She was hopeful. Her voice was calm. But her eyes shook, because this wasn't about survival anymore. It was about choosing a future. Cole looked at her. He looked at the children's 3 little hearts that trusted him more than the world ever had. He looked at the cold world outside and the warmth inside this small, broken family, and he said it. Without doubt, without hesitation, "I already am." Raella's breath hitched. She leaned into his chest, and this time she didn't cry. She smiled. A real smile, one that hadn't touched her face in years. Weeks passed, they built a new home deep in the caves. Warm with alien firestones, filled with laughter and simple food. Cole taught Leary how to use a compass. Raella taught him how to cook root stew with strange glowing mushrooms. The baby learned to walk. Cole was the first one she ran to, and when she said her first word, Darila cried all night in his arms. One night, while stargazing outside the cave, Raella handed Cole something small. It was the silver seed she had once shown him. "Plant it here," she said. "Not as a memory of where we've been, but a promise of what we're growing." Cole pressed the seed into the earth. Raella covered it with her hands. Together, they watched the soil breathe with new light. A tiny green sprout broke the surface under the stars. Hope had roots now, and this time, it wasn't going anywhere. Final scene, the fire glows inside the cave. Children laugh in the background. Riella sits close beside Cole, her head resting on his shoulder. I used to believe the galaxy took everything from me, she whispers. But then it sent a human who gave it all back. Cole holds her hand tightly. No, he says. You gave me something I never knew I was missing. A family, a home, and a reason to come back every single day.